Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, former NATO Ambassador Kurt Volker talks about U.S. foreign policy amid increasing tensions around the world. And we'll hear from legislative leaders on the latest issues at the state capitol. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. North Korea warns that nuclear war with the U.S. could break out at any moment, this as civilian casualties mount in the Syrian civil war. Here to talk about what certainly appears to be an increasingly dangerous world is former NATO Ambassador and McCain Institute Executive Director Kurt Volker. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
We got a lot to talk about tonight.
A lot's going on.
North Korea, saber-rattling to new degrees here. What's going on?
Well, North Korea is on a track to not only have nuclear weapons that they already have, but to miniaturize these and be able to deliver them either to countries in Asia or even to the United States. And so we have a time period here in which we want to get North Korea off that track. So there's two steps. One of them is to show more U.S. resolve to bring that about, including military resolve. And by doing that, to try to get China, in particular, countries with influence, to put pressure on North Korea to get them to stand down.
The U.S.-South Korean military exercises, which has really gotten under North Korea's skin.
Yep.
How unusual are those?
They're not. What's unusual is the rhetoric and the resolve being demonstrated by the administration the way we talk about it. The physical military exercises are something that we do with South Korea on a regular, recurring basis every year. North Korea always complains about it, but it's very important we do it because sometimes you can't just listen to rhetoric. You've got to actually show the facts on the ground in order to change their calculations.
Now, Vice President Pence is in Tokyo, was in Tokyo. How concerned is Japan over all this?
Very concerned because they're in the line of fire. North Korea has tested missiles into the Sea of Japan and presumably could hit Japan. What they don't have right now is a nuclear missile that can hit Japan, but they're working on miniaturizing the nuclear technology. So they are very concerned. We've put missile defenses into Japan, and I think they are very much welcoming the U.S. pressure and resolve that's stepping up now, because this can't continue to go unchecked and have Japan remain safe.
And North Korea, when you talk about North Korea, China is always a major factor. What's China doing about all this?
Well, China has always wanted several things. They want to keep a divided Korean peninsula rather than a unified one. They like the idea that North Korea needles the United States. They want that to be a festering problem. But when it gets out of hand and the U.S. starts building up and going in more seriously, China doesn't like that. So what China wants is for us to handle this. But then if it gets beyond a certain level, they actually have an interest in trying to resolve it too, and that's the point we're trying to get to.
They have an interest, and I think for most of us from 30,000 foot above, we think China basically controls the whole situation. Put your finger down, North Korea follows. Do they have that much control?
No. No. It is not an exaggeration to say this is a crazy leader he's murdered members of his family who've been part of the leadership. They killed this uncle. They killed this guy in Malaysia with this airport attack that we all saw. He has threatened over and over again to actually use nuclear forces. He feels insecure in his regime and in his leadership. He uses violence and brutality and authoritarianism to enforce it, and we're facing someone who very well could use weapons.
It sounds like someone who does not like to be humiliated, and yes, yet this missile test, this missile launch, complete failure. Is that a good thing, or is that the kind of thing that could get him off on a tangent?
Well, both. I think it can get him off on a tangent. I understand your point, but at the same time, if we put into them the fear that if we did this, who even knows, maybe it happened on its own. But if they believe that their tests, their capabilities are less than what they would like them to be, that again can enforce some real world caution if they're going to be threatening things.
This guy would have any sense of caution? I mean, he doesn't sound like he makes any sense at all.
The only thing he seems to care about is regime survival. And so if he doesn't feel he has the tools that work, and he invites a response that could end his regime.
Last point on this. What would it take for regime change in North Korea? Are there people ready to step in when the crazy man goes away?
He has been so brutal inside that country that there are probably not people prepared to make that happen now. But in the event of some kind of conflict, a removal, or he's killed, or something happens internally, or China does something to remove him, puts him into a hospital in China before needed medical treatment, something like that happens, I do think that there are generals who are the best organized in society, able to lead in probably a more responsible way.
More responsible. It's unlikely, though, that if he gets out of the way, an even crazier person follows.
I think he's trying to eliminate everybody, and I think it's the cautious generals are the ones that survive.
Real quickly, last week the president said we're sending an armada to the Sea of Japan. The goal was as a deterrent. The armada was going in the opposite direction. What's going on here?
I think he probably misspoke and then wanted to double down on the misstatement. The exercise was going to be off of Australia, thousands of miles away. We were pursuing that. Having the forces in Asia is probably what he was briefed on, and he probably just conflated everything together. That being said, the U.S. does have substantial capabilities in Korea and near Korea. We're going to be moving things closer to Korea now after these misstatements. So it is something that's going to be real. We will have more capability in the region. Another
curiosity involving the president is he's now saying China is not a currency manipulator after repeatedly saying that China was a currency. Again, there's a little flippy-floppy thing happening here. What do foreign countries, especially in that volatile part of the world, think when on one point China is doing something, the next point, they're fine, no problem?
Yeah, well, I think that it's a little bit of volatility. The White House has tried to portray this as useful unpredictability. What I think that it really is you have some things that are part of your attitude, part of your judgment of what is happening in the world and how do we feel about it. And then as you get into concrete issues and try to manage them, you see that there's a whole lot of different interests, a whole lot of complexities. The president himself said that. And you start seeing how if you pull on this thread, that unravels, you pull on that thread, that unravels, and it's driven us back toward what are very responsible and professional policies. So we've had this dichotomy of, the rhetoric going on at one level, but an increasing professionalism in policy on the other side.
And we saw that in Syria, when the idea of bombing Syria and getting rid of Assad was like, nah, it's ridiculous, that's crazy talking.
We've seen it with Syria, we've seen it with NATO, we've seen it with Russia, we've seen it with North Korea, we've seen it with China. So all in all, I guess that's a good thing.
So it's a good thing that everyone thinks we're nuts or something? I mean, no one's in control?
Well, no, that we've got a very strong national security cabinet that when confronted with some of these policy issues and some of the decisions that need to be made has steered toward the right ones.
I was going to, and another flip-flop seems to be NATO. NATO was obsolete during the campaign.
Not obsolete
anymore. I'm sure you're glad to hear that.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I think, first off, you start to realize that Russia is not as friendly a country toward the United States as we would want it to be. So even though we'd like to work with them, doesn't mean they want to work with us. The second thing is that NATO is actually very useful for a number of things, even if it costs us some things. Third, everybody is increasing their defense spending now. And fourth, NATO actually does deal with counterterrorism to some degree. It can do more, but it's already doing it to some degree. So I think keeping our alliance together, reassuring allies who were very concerned about the direction of the administration, those are things that the administration has now effectively done.
Are they still concerned?
I think after the meeting of President Trump and the Secretary General of NATO, Stoltenberg, last week, it was kind of the final piece. Mattis, Tillerson, and Pence had all had very good meetings with counterparts and meetings in Europe to reassure people, but everyone was waiting to hear from the president himself, and then he delivered on that when Stoltenberg was here.
Real quickly, talking about NATO, got a French election coming up this weekend.
Yes.
We got another crazy person running over there.
We've got more than one. And this is the risk, is that we have the far-right candidate who leads as a plurality. On her own, she's going to get the most votes. That's Marine Le Pen, far-right nationalist, would put up France for a referendum on whether to stay in the EU, skeptical about NATO, pro-Russian, bragged about getting money from Russia. On the other side, they've been struggling to put forward a good candidate who can win. They've had a couple good candidates, and they look like they would lose. And now you're seeing a couple who are questionable. One of them is this guy Mélenchon, far left candidate, been rising in the polls, virtually a communist, also pro-Russian, also anti-EU, anti-NATO. Or a guy named Macron, who is neither a conservative nor a socialist, although he comes out of the Socialist Party, and you wonder, are people really going to vote for him?
Yeah, I was going to say he's got no chance, doesn't he?
Well, it's hard to know who does have a chance because there's 2 or 3 candidates going to divide up the sane vote.
So you got a crazy person on the right, crazy person on the left. They're both pro-Russia.
Yes.
What's Putin doing there? Who does he go for?
He's happy because now a situation has emerged where it doesn't matter how it plays out. If those are the 2 candidates that emerge from Sunday's election into the final round, he's got a winner on either side.
It feels, again, from a distance, it feels like the world is itching for a fight. It just feels like things are out of control, and what little control there is being taken up by a bunch of loud talkers and bullies. Do you feel that?
I definitely feel it, and I think what it is the governing elites that we've had have been deers frozen in the headlights. They see all of these challenges, and you see this in France right now. People feel that their identity of being French is under threat, under attack, from immigrants, from changes in religion, from terrorism, from loss of jobs, from supranationalism in the EU, all of these things. And the elites have kept telling them, don't worry, everything's fine. Well, that has given the opening to the populist politicians to play to that and say, no, we're going to tear everything up.
And they're in the process of tearing a lot of things up.
Right. We need bolder politicians who have more sensible, grounded views.
Speaking of sensible, grounded views, Sedona Forum is this week. What is that?
Well, the McCain Institute, which is part of Arizona State University, hosts one large international gathering a year. It's invitation only, but it is meant to bring together leaders from the worlds of politics, business, government, civil society, human rights, to really strategize what are the options that the challenges we face as a country and our options for dealing with them. So we're very excited to be doing that again this year.
And this year it sounds like you'll have a lot to talk about.
We will.
All right.
We will.
It's good to see you again.
Thank
Thanks for joining us. This is Arizona Horizon. Up next, the latest from the state capitol.
I've been getting used to waking up.
Come and play with us.
Onward and onward!
Good ideas open up a whole new world of possibilities.
The more you know about history, the more you know about yourself.
The sky is the limit.
Where I go, there you are.
Albertsons and Safeway are proud to support our Arizona veterans and Arizona PBS. Learn more at azpbs.org/veterans.
Each week we get an update on bills and issues making the rounds at the state capitol. Last week we heard from Democratic leadership. Tonight it's the Republicans' turn. Joining us now is Senate President Pro Tem Debbie Lesko and House Speaker Pro Tem TJ Shope. Good to have you both here. Good to see you both again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
A lot of what we're talking about here seems to have some grounding in the House, but I want to get your thoughts on these things as well. There's a disability lawsuit that there was a compromise regarding how long a business would have to make the needed adjustments before being hit with a lawsuit. The compromise called for certain things, including a 30-day kind of a cure period. Well, the compromise just seemed like it just disappeared in the dead of night. Now it's a 90-day, and everyone voted for it, and I think the disability community is saying, what the heck happened? What happened?
Well, what we were told is that there was stakeholder process, and this was a negotiated deal. And the bill was in response to what we all saw on the TV about some attorney firms going after businesses that were not ADA compliant. And to me, it was a little overburdensome. You know, the Attorney General's office has looked into that. But basically, I think it's really common sense legislation because it gives businesses 30 days to cure or address the problem that's identified on minor issues, but then 60 days for non-minor issues. And if a permit's involved, you know, and if the government delays that time, then you get more than the 60 days. I
think a lot of people, though, hear that and they say, why do they get any days?
Well, I think that a lot of the times whenever you have something brought to your attention, and in my life outside of the legislature, I'm in business. My family's been in the grocery business for over 65 years. You have things that are brought to your attention. Many times it's through no fault of your own. Perhaps somebody has, not your knowledge, gone and blocked with another sign or something like that, a sign out in front of your spot for a parking spot or whatever the case may be. These are the types of things that, is that business, do they deserve a shot to correct that problem, especially if it's a minor problem? And I think that that's what this bill was attempting to solve.
And it seemed as though, again, there was a settled group of ideas, including 30 days. Sounds like a fair deal, 30 days. Both sides hammer it out, both sides agreement. Why does it have to become 90 days, and why does it happen without input from the disability community?
So I think that what we were referring to there is something that Senator Lesko has already brought up, and that is I guess I would describe it more as a tiered system there. If there's a minor issue, it's X amount of days. If it's a mid issue, and then it can be argued up to that 90-day period. After which, I would also say, after which, if the problem's not corrected, or if it's not corrected to the point that it needs to be, a lawsuit may in fact be filed, and that person would be well within their right to do so, and the court would have to decide at that point.
Well, can you give me an example of an issue that is okay for 30 days, but not okay for 90 days?
Yeah, I was told in our caucus committee that something like, let's say a toilet roll holder, if it's 2 inches too high, that would be a minor issue and most likely could be corrected by the owner of the business within 30 days. But if something that is a ramp or something that needs a building permit, you really need a longer time for that, because you can't get a contractor out there within 30 days and you can't get a permit turnaround within 30 days. So it seems reasonable to me that we give businesses, if they're in violation of some type of ADA compliance, that they be given a chance to correct that. And then if they don't correct it, then go sue them.
But do you think it made sense to not include the disability community on that extension after they had worked so hard trying to get the 30 days and figured out, okay, we've got a deal? I mean, the deal just kind of vaporized.
Well, this wasn't my bill, but I was told in caucus from the people that were involved is that the ADA community was involved. So, yeah.
Well, from what we've heard, the Arizona Center for Disability Law said that they had absolutely no input in this.
You know, my understanding, and speaking to the speaker today, speaking to Senator Shooter, who helped lead a lot of that discussion on the House side, there were meetings. Senator Shooter had taken part, the speaker had taken part in a lot of these via proxy at these meetings. There was input. You know, most of everything that had been agreed to is in the bill, and I think ultimately what we have here is a situation where there's disagreement on the amount of days to correct. And I would like to also say that, to Senator Lesko's point, we're talking about, especially in rural Arizona, where we have building permit issues. We have some city councils that only meet once a month. So there may be longer than 30 days before a building permit could even be drawn.
I believe there were some other agreed on issues that also evaporated, again, without consultation. I think that was the biggest problem right there, that folks didn't think they had a fair shot at that. We have talked about this before, the idea of requiring warrants, DCS needing a warrant to take a child out of a home. I kept waiting for that one. I don't see that one. What happened?
Well, I think it's a really important issue, and it's very complicated. You have to deal with the courts, make sure that courts are open 24/7 and that type of thing. But the idea is, and DCS said that they want to really look into this and pursue it, that they would need to go to the court in certain situations and need a court to approve that they can take the children from their home. And, you know, if I was DCS, I'd want to do this because it kind of gives them a little bit of cover, you know, because they're in a bad situation, DCS is. If they don't take the kid away and something happens to the kid, they get blamed. If they take the kid away, the parents say it's unjust. So if you get a court involved, it actually seems like a good idea. Now, what I've been told is that more time needs to be given to this. It's very complicated. You need to make sure the courts are involved. And so rushing something through may not be a good idea.
So this is potentially still alive, even though most folks thought we would see something by now.
So I would argue that if nothing else, we will at least see an oversight committee of some sort to come to us, work with the courts, work with others to develop the idea for this. Look, we have in Arizona today, if you look at the justice court model, for example, where we have justice of the peace, we're able to, within a few minutes, issue a warrant on like a DUI issue. The problem is with the DCS issue is that that's a very specific law. So to think that we can have, you know, every family court to go to the 24-hour, 7-day a week, that's asking a lot, especially in rural Arizona, where, you know, I think maybe in Phoenix, maybe in Tucson, we would be able to come to figure this out with the manpower. But I think it'd be very difficult to implement. That's not saying that I don't agree that there needs to be a warrant for this.
There were some amendments offered, the idea of no use of voice stress tests, quarterly reports from DCS. DCS can't lie or withhold information. I'm not sure why that's in there. But I mean, what these amendments, did that slow the process? Did that stop the process? What's going on with these things?
Well, this is something that went on in the House. This originally was a Senator Nancy Bartow bill, and it was basically about having a DCS oversight committee, which Senator Bartow really hopes that that portion of the bill actually gets through. But from my understanding, over in the House, there were hostile amendments that got added onto the bill without Senator Bartow's approval. And not maybe because she disagreed with it, it's just that this is so complicated. We need time to work this out. We don't want to rush something through that maybe has bad consequences.
And I would echo that. I think that in the House anyway, the process maybe got sped a little bit too quickly by a handful of lawmakers. And I think now that we've had a chance to maybe take a deep breath on this issue, we may come back and address a handful of those items. My hope is that, like I said, at the very least, we'll get this oversight committee because we do need to figure this question out. And from there, hopefully, if we're able to come through something that the court will say is workable at this point, we'll come to that.
Also in the House, a bill banning teenage texting seems to have risen. What's going on with it? I thought this one went away. Now it's back. I guess
Dracula lives on.
A certain lawmaker went away, apparently, is the reason. What's going on here?
Well, we were talking about President Trump earlier. We have President Trump, I guess, to thank for that bill coming forward as far as in the Rules Committee, correct? Because Representative Lovis is now away from the legislature, and wish him well, obviously. Speaker Mesnard, in charge of the Rules Committee, has decided to bring that bill forward. It does ban texting for teens. Currently in Arizona, you know, we have a graduated license system, so there are restrictions on these young drivers already, such as they can't be out driving alone past a certain time, things like that. This would add texting to it.
But we also have laws against distracted driving. And those folks who find this, I'm sure Representative Lovis was among them, thinking, what's the point of this? I mean, if you're distracted, you're distracted.
This is my 9th year in the legislature, and I think just about every year we have had this bill come before us, and there's always a debate, do we need this bill to ban texting or not? And I have to tell you, in the past, I've usually been a no vote saying, you know, we already have this distracted driving law, but then lawyers have come in and said, no, that doesn't really cover it, we need this. So this year I voted yes, This year I voted yes, and I guess it was 9 years of being talked into this. I finally voted yes, but yes, it's a gradual thing. It's for graduated drivers, beginning drivers, that they're not allowed to text, and that makes sense to me. It's common sense. These people are just starting to drive, and do we really want them driving around while they're texting? I don't think so.
Yeah, but you know, the other argument is once you start a little bit here, you're going to be having, it's the first 6 months, I believe, of your license is when you can't do this, no matter your age. But you know, there are a lot of folks who don't want to see texting while driving at any point of a driver's career. What do you think of that?
Well, if I'm in the legislature longer, I'm sure we're going to hear that debate every single year, then I'm there.
We got to get this one passed before that one starts coming. Is that what you're telling me
I was
here?
just going to say, Ted, I think you'll probably have us on next year or the year after to talk about that. But I think that at this point, we'll see how it goes. I can't tell you for sure that this has the votes to pass or not. We will see whenever it gets put up. I think there's a very good shot of it. And I think it's going to be a cross-section of Democrats, Republicans. There'll be holdouts, I think, on either side that are probably not going to be in favor. But I do think that ultimately it will pass.
Same thing in the Senate?
Yeah, I think it already passed once.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
All right, that's right. It was a House where a certain lawmaker's not there anymore, was holding things up. Good to see you both again.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hold right there. Detour Company Theater is a local troupe of actors and performers that's helping break down barriers, so much so. I'm sorry, what are we doing? The promo. Oh, okay. We're going to do the promo right now. Thursday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about concerns over the loss of diversity in seed stock, and we'll learn about a new heavy metal violin concerto to be performed by the Phoenix Symphony and violinist Rachel Barton Pine. That's Thursday at 5:30 and 10, I promise, on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thanks for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.